Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Sabah al-Khair. Good morning, dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yousef Ahmed al-Rimawi. We would like to welcome our listeners on the AM dial and those who will join us later on 3cr.org.au/podcasts. In this week's episode, we will be talking about the nomination of BDS for the Nobel Peace Prize. For this and more, stay with us and enjoy the episode. Good morning, Nasser and Robert.
Yousef, Robert.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Yousef, before we start, we do get messages of thanks and congratulations from our listeners all the time.
How great is that?
But, we get text messages, but this is the first message we've had from Sulphur, Louisiana. So Jeff, who listens to us from on the podcast on 3cr.org.au, Jeff sent us a great note and expressing his appreciation for this program, loves the format, very informative, and he thinks you guys are awesome, especially Nasser. No, actually.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, we had to add Nasser's name there because obviously it was only Yousef and Robert.
So. Well, thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. I hope you enjoyed this one too.
So what do we have this week, Nasser?
Well, this week we're going to talk about, the extra-judicial killings of some Palestinians this year. We're going to talk about BDS, and we've got a surprise from yourself, Yousef. But why don't we start off with our with the extrajudicial killings? We had
the story of Ahmed Jarrar and Ahmed Jarrar.
That's right. Ahmed Nasser Jarrar, he was killed yesterday. And what makes yesterday's killing so much worse, they've been trying to get him for a month now, the best part of a month. They killed his cousin with the same name, just because that's what you do when you're a democracy, and that's what Israel does. They trapped the Ahmed Jarrar that they were after in a building. They dropped a missile on the house, and this is called, pressure tactics. Now, when he didn't come out, they brought in an armoured bulldozer and started to knock walls down in the house. And the actual term for this, Israeli government or army calls it the pressure cooker technique. So they knock rooms down until you're trapped in one room. And they keep moving him to the front door. And once he was at the front door and that room was starting to fall down, he came out. Now, at that point, the building is surrounded by, fully equipped army soldiers in occupied Palestine, in the West Bank.
There's no escape.
No escape. At that point, they can arrest him.
They could have.
They can immobilize him. They could shoot him in the leg. Instead, they unloaded magazines and murdered him.
They wanted him dead.
They wanted him. This is an extrajudicial killing. And the thing about it is that, Israel claims to be this wonderful democracy. Our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, lauded Israel for being like Australia, rule of law, and we respect the separation between church and state, and we have a Supreme Court, and it's, anybody, regardless of religion, can vote. You can't. In Israel, if you celebrate God on Friday or Sunday, you are not the same as somebody who celebrates on Saturday.
You belong to the wrong type of people.
The wrong type of people.
And this is what Norda last week discussed. As a Palestinian living there, that lives in Australia now. So.
And then you go, okay, well, surely there should be some condemnation, in a democracy, whether it's, in Australia, we've got the Greens condemning, Brigadier General Nolan for some
retweets
and videos,
shares.
Facebook shares, and then, his party leader defending him, saying he's a good guy. In a robust democracy, you expect that sort of stuff. But not in Israel. From President Rivlin down to Prime Minister Netanyahu to Foreign Minister Lieberman, I mean, the sort of comments that they have. I mean, here's Rivlin. He's the president of Israel. I have no doubt that the murderer and his collaborators will be pursued until we reach them all. And Netanyahu says, we're going to attack anyone and bring everyone to justice. And this applies to all murderers. It is clear that it's only a matter of time until we hit the head of everyone. This is Lieberman. I mean...
Celebrating death.
Celebrating death. Arrest the guy, put him on trial. If he's found guilty, give him life imprisonment. That's what a democracy does.
Any other country wants to find out why they did it, who were their collaborators, and all of that, but being a Palestinian, they only want to kill them.
We have here two questions. First, is extrajudicial execution or killing new to Israel? And the answer is no.
No.
And the second question, what has the international community done, or the international law, or countries like Australia did for or about that?
Well,
the answer is nothing.
All they've done is continue to reward Israel for the blockade in Gaza, the 51st year now. We're in the 51st year of the occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem and Gaza. I mean, they just get away with anything.
The problem is that all Palestinians are labelled terrorists. Every time we hear anything on the news, it's, we've killed another terrorist. But unfortunately, kids are labelled as terrorists as well. And so, just for being Palestinian. But the fact that they can kill Palestinians without getting in trouble or anything like that, it's not going to stop them.
Also, on the point of Ahmed Jarrar, we want to mention that Ahmed Jarrar is from Mukhayyam Jenin, from Jenin camp. And when we mention Mukhayyam Jenin, we have to really give the salute and to the respect of this capital of resistance of 2002 and the Second Intifada in general. Mukhayyam Jenin gave us icons of resistance, and Mukhayyam Jenin alone, I don't want to say alone, but Mukhayyam Jenin was the spearhead against the re-invasion and the reoccupation of West Bank. And when we talk about Mukhayyam Jenin, we talk with pride, we talk with full respect, we talk with dignity. And now this spirit of dignity that the Mukhayyam Jenin and other camps in Palestine, I watch media outlets in Arabic, I watch social media in Palestinian pages, and people are saying that we miss this type of reminders of dignity. And I just wanted to say that all respect to the people of Mukhayyam Jenin and the people...
well, all of the Palestinians in their steadfastness, but particularly
the spearhead. And also the second point I want to say before we end this point is that we can say a lot about the polarization, political polarization, but the story of Ahmed Jarrar was a reminder that factionism disappears when it comes to resistance. His cousin was from Fatah. The other guy who was killed, Ahmed, the real Ahmed, was from Hamas, but that didn't matter at all, and they were both targeted for being Palestinian. And I think this is the right time that we should say stop for factionism and we go back to everything that unites us.
Just before we leave this too, there's 4 kids have been killed this year as well, Palestinian kids, which is something that isn't rare, and it's a reasonable... I mean, it happens a lot. And some of these kids were at trying to protest for their rights of having their own land.
On top of the hundreds of kids that are arrested,
500 to 700 a year. So, I mean, it's just a very, very sad state of affairs.
Just as we close on Jenin, I remember, my late father, we were in a coffee shop in Sydney, and the guy serving us was obviously Arabic, and Dad could tell from somebody's accent where they were from the Arab world. And he went, you're
very knowledgeable.
You're obviously Palestinian, and you're from,
this
particular area. Whereabouts are you from? And he said Jenin. And my dad said, you never say Jenin. You say Jenin Arina Lusud, the lion's lair.
Yes.
The lion's lair. So
indeed.
That's beautiful.
We don't ever forget the strength that comes from Jenin camp. But moving on, we are very, very pleased to announce that the Norwegian MP and leader of the Red Party, Bjorn Moxnes, has nominated the BDS movement, Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movements, for the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize. And
Bjorn knows his stuff by the sounds of it.
He's a good
human being. And
he's a goodie. And this is a quote he said: "We nominated the BDS movement for the Nobel Peace Prize, well aware that this is a perfectly legitimate nomination of a perfectly legitimate movement that fights for a legitimate cause, that of the Palestinians, with legitimate peaceful means, and this will meet some resistance, typically in the form of smearing campaigns and the like. In the face of that kind of opposition, the challenge is to stay focused on the main cause, freedom for the Palestinians, and to stay focused on what we see as a humble contribution to that cause and attempt to start a positive international campaign in favour of awarding the Peace Prize to the BDS movement.
That's fantastic.
That is amazing. And in fact, it's amazing to us because we are Palestinian or pro-Palestinian camp, but it has a significance when it comes to, let's detach ourselves from there. Now, Israel is trying to incriminate the word BDS and to make it illegal to support BDS, not in Israel, but in America and Canada and probably one day in Australia.
They'll start here soon.
So to move from there, not to neutrality, but also to rewarding it as hopefully they will make it. I mean, to be honest with you, I know there are a long list of barriers for them to make it towards the finals. However, the nomination itself might be enough. It might be a big slap to the face of Israelis that this, what you want to incriminate is in fact an honor.
Yep. For those people that don't know, it's BDS is Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, which is simply something to do to try and have Israel adhere to international law.
Yeah.
That's basically it, and people are calling it anti-Semitic. I mean, please, just adhere to the international laws, human rights
according
laws.
According to Israel, criticizing Israel politically should be considered anti-Semitism. Now, to what extent the world will listen, this is the question. We say, no, it's not, because there are Jewish BDS supporters, and there are some of them are actually Israeli BDS supporters, but we don't want to dig deep in there. Let's talk about the morality of BDS as a response, as a non-violence response,
non-violent.
And it came in a time of paralysis in political horizons and in any form of solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So the Palestinian civil society said enough. So they issued this call and they asked the international community to stop having trade dealings with Israel in response to what Israel does to the Palestinians, to the civilian Palestinians, by maintaining and sustaining the occupation, by maintaining and sustaining the siege of Gaza, and also by continuing to prevent the majority of the Palestinian population to return to where they are from, including
their
myself.
legitimate rights, yeah. So a Jew can claim refugee status from over 2,000 years ago, but a Palestinian 70-year-old claim, and their title and deeds to their homes, the keys to the front door, don't count.
Are denied, yeah.
But exactly what you were saying, Yousef, there is a disconnect in Norway, as there is in Australia, between the government and the population. As we know, in APAN, we've been doing a number of surveys of the populace. There is a movement within Australia that accepts the right of Palestinians to
statehood or to independence,
but also to BDS.
And America.
To BDS. And Moxner says, the current Norwegian government is closely allied to the US, and it seems more eager to please the US and its ally in Tel Aviv than to uphold a principled stance on international law and human rights. And he explains that the support Israel gets on a governmental level is not replicated across Norwegian society, pointing to the Norwegian Confederation of Trade Unions, which is a massive player in Norwegian politics, by the way. They firmly support the Palestinian cause and voted in favour of implementing full BDS in December, only a couple of months ago. So there's a disconnect between, the rulers, i.e.
the government,
Netanyahu, etc., and the populace of Norway. And that's going everywhere to the point where we go through to the states. And as we know, over 20 states in the United States of America, that trumps the United States of America, they've passed legislation, anti-BDS legislation. In the state of New Jersey has anti-BDS legislation. And the Zionists aren't content with having it at a state level. They've gone down to the council level. And one council in New Jersey, some pro-Palestinian advocates, found out that their local municipality was going to pass anti-BDS legislation. And they rallied and got a petition together and went along to the town hall meeting and debated. And the council actually said, you're right, we're not going to pass this resolution, and threw it out. So it's a win for BDS in that when presented with the facts in an open and democratic situation, the right of a human being to choose not to buy a product, to choose to sell shares in a company that is complicit in the murder, deprivation of human rights of innocent civilians and Palestinians, that this is your constitutional right to do that. And that follows on from there to a story in Kansas where a teacher, in fact she's a facilitator for teachers and she delivers education programs in Kansas. She was asked to sign, as a condition of her engagement by the city of Kansas, a form to say that she would never boycott Israel. And she said, well...
As a prerequisite to employment.
As a prerequisite to getting an opportunity to tender for a government contract.
That is terrible.
Well, she took them to court, and last month a federal judge in Kansas ruled it unconstitutional, and so it was thrown out. So she could actually, didn't have to sign the form and could, be awarded the contract. So,
well, last Friday, I remember a friend of mine, an Australian lawyer, calling me angry as she was listening to the morning radio with John Fain.
that happens a bit.
And
because Kroger went to town.
She was so angry when she heard a Labour MP accusing a Green MP of being anti-Semite for supporting BDS. And that person is a non-Palestinian, the listener, and she was so furious. How dare he can say this to accuse somebody on national radio of anti-Semitism is a black and white defamation, and for just supporting a just cause or a right means like the BDS.
Well, that interview, and people can go to the 774 website and the ABC website and see it. In fact, what had happened is John Fain had interviewed Michael Kroger, the president of the Victorian Labor Party, and he said, we're going to check out who the Greens candidate is, because Batman has been held by Labor for yonks. On a state level, Batman, or that area, was lost to the Greens. The Labor lost that to the Greens. And David Feeney, who's a despicable Zionist and also just a terrible politician and a dual citizen, he's resigned from Parliament.
He ticks all the boxes.
Ticks all the boxes.
Dual citizen to Israel?
No, probably. So the Greens candidate, Alex Bethal, she's a fabulous woman and it would make a fantastic representative to the constituency of Batman. But Kroger said, we're going to check out whether she's an anti-Semite, if she supports BDS, the terrible...
Equating supporting BDS with anti-Semitism.
And he said, if she is one of those people, and like Lee Rhiannon, that sort of terrible anti-Semitic type person, then we will run a candidate against her and then preference Labor, that on a purely domestic politics, whether the Adani mine matters, whether power can, whether customers are paying right prices for power, whether power's going to get disconnected, what's happening with our energy grid, trains, schooling, hospitals, all the things that matter to Australians. The state president of the Liberal Party saying we're going to work out whether the Greens, if we define that person as an anti-Semite, we're going to run a Liberal candidate using Liberal funds so that we can get votes, so that we can preference Labor, so that Labor person can get up rather than have an anti-Semite.
So that's disgusting.
So the whole political rivalry is reduced to the point
of
Israel/Palestine.
Yep.
And if you are a supporter of Israel, so many doors are open. If you, God forbid, are a politician and a supporter of Palestine, the best you can get is a little bit of support from your community, and that's it. Anyway, you're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Nasser, Robert and Yousef. And we have about 10 minutes towards the end of the program. And Nasser, what a wonderful event was on Friday with Roger.
Well, it was fantastic, and we've really got to thank, international superstar, former singer with the Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, for his evening. For the presentation he did yesterday to a packed house. We'll have more details and some
definitely
some more excerpts from the speak next week. But people can go to the APAN Facebook page and watch the video that we taped yesterday.
And it was Anthony Lowenstein and
Randa Abdel Fattah.
Yeah, fantastic. It was really good.
And a wonderful MC as well.
Yeah, he looked very similar to you. Hey, Yousef, I read an article that was in Palestinian newspapers.
In Arabic.
It was in Arabic,
Yes,
obviously, so
yes.
it was a little bit sketchy. But I was very, very impressed. Now, can you tell us about your wonderful idea?
Thank you. Well, it was amazing to see my words in Palestinian newspaper on so many levels that they made return before I did to Palestine, especially in Al-Quds newspaper, the Palestine's first newspaper. And this is my second article in which I called for the incrimination of Nakba denial in Palestine, then in some Arab countries, to put some barriers of entry, legal barriers of entry, to what I can see where the Arab-Israeli relations are going towards more normalization. Mm-hmm. So the idea started from similar laws incriminating denial of Holocaust, and rightly so, in Israel and 16 European countries. And in Australia, denial of Holocaust can be persecuted as a hate crime or vilification. In other European countries, the denial of the Armenian genocide is illegal. In France, it's against the law to publicly on your Facebook or Twitter account deny the Armenian genocide, and it's rightly so. Again, so you could spend a year in prison and pay 37,000 euros as a punishment for publicly denying the Armenian genocide. There are similar cases in Italy where it is against the Italian laws to glorify Mussolini and to glorify the fascist party. And now, as we speak, the Democratic Italian Party wants to pass another bill to tighten these laws to make it illegal for football fans to give the Mussolini salute in stadiums, and to make it illegal. And again, why do we need something like this in the Arab world? Well, there are different takes to this, but I limited it to the context of, in my article, the context of normalization. And normalization, when you make something not normal, like occupation, normal. There's nothing normal about sustaining occupation for more than 50 years. And
but more than that, Yousef, what you were talking about normalization. We had the situation now where Air India now can fly from Mumbai to Tel Aviv over Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so it's getting.
So what does the Saudi government or the prince or the king or whomever need to do? They need to start easing the Arab street and their expectation of liberty for the Palestinians. And so subtle stuff happens, like, maybe the Palestinians didn't get thrown out. Maybe they sold their house.
Absolutely.
Maybe they chose to leave, they thought things would be better for them in Lebanon. And this is the sort of Nakba denial we're talking about.
And it's a systematic and gradual process, and it's happening in different Arab countries. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time and resources to increase awareness in the Arab world, because we don't have access to the population. And yes, we have the social media, but you don't have the exposure. But and we need something like a barrier of entry. You need something like a legal barrier towards publicly saying that the Palestinians were not the victims of Nakba. And in fact, to say that Nakba in general is a very broad term. Mm-hmm. So for that, you have to give Nakba a precise definition. And all historians agree that Nakba has two pillars. First, the success of the Zionist movement to control by force 78% of the historical Palestine, and B, the expulsion of up to 900,000 Palestinians, two-thirds of the Palestinian society, forceful expulsion and of these two-thirds of the Palestinian population. So to say that the Palestinians sold their lands, this will attack the second pillar of the definition. And for that to happen, of course, I don't want to claim expertise in areas like law, but my suggestion is that the Palestine should issue these laws first, because we can't expect the Arab to have a higher standard than us. So we should be the first to incriminate the denial of Nakba in Palestine. And then this is something we can ask some of the Arab parliaments, and I would say Algeria, maybe Lebanon, maybe Kuwait, and maybe a few other parliaments are likely to support a call like this if it was endorsed by Palestinian diplomacy. So God knows where it leads. So that was the story of the article, which was titled in Arabic تجريم إنكار النكبة الفلسطينية مقاومة التطبيع بالقانون.
I was disappointed they didn't have your picture in it as well. So
I gave them
the next time, especially with the new hair.
I gave them a picture with a good pose, something like,
with the new hair. I think this will be the third week in a row that we've spoken about his hair.
We had the thinker, Rodin's thinker.
So maybe the next article.
Yeah.
So the reality, Yousef, and we shouldn't downplay the importance of your article. In fact, thought leaders, and I certainly think you're one of those, Yousef, we need to have that sort of stuff so we can create the conversation, because we can't ask the Jordanians to punish a Jordanian for suggesting that Palestinians left Palestine, or an Egyptian, or a Syrian, or a Lebanese, or a Kuwaiti, an Omani, etc., if we don't do it ourselves internally first. And so it's up to the PA and the PNC and the PLO and the whole, judiciary, etc., to create those laws so that we can then take that as a set of legislation and take it to the Egyptian parliament and say, we expect you to pass the exact same law.
Yeah, and in fact, I was very happy to have received messages from lawyers from Palestine who said we like the idea and we're happy to work on it legally and to start something that might lead to something from a purely
the discussion has to be had, and from there the legislation can be written and then it can be voted upon and entered into law. And
this is in no way a call of limiting freedom of speech, because people can say what they want, but it's actually you and I can talk a lot about what our grandparents had seen in 48. And in my article, I shared a letter that I received from a friend who lives now in Italy. The letter was written 3 weeks after Nakba, and it was written by a mother, a widow who was 19, widow. She was written to her father, unknown address, saying that if you find my father, give him this letter. And she described the horrible situation in the 3 weeks exactly after Nakba. And I talk about it with difficulty and to hold my emotions, because what she said about, the fact that she can no longer feed her 2 daughters because Ijzim, the other village, has fallen, and the people of Ijzim used to give them eggs and bread. And she said also to her parents that I couldn't go back to the farm of Tantura to dig for the gold and money we buried before we leave. And, other things.
Aside from losing her husband as well.
Aside from losing her husband in the massacre of Tantura. So this is just a tiny example of a big ocean that's called the Palestinians.
And to go through all that and then be labelled a terrorist.
And to be labelled a terrorist, and to be denied the right of crying over that sadness. And what's worse than sadness is the denial of crying. You are not allowed to cry, and we by negating our right of return and by saying that we sold our land, this is what the Arabs are telling us, that you don't have the right to cry over this.
Because you sold. You chose.
You chose to. Yeah. And for that, in response to that, we need to incriminate the denial of Nakba. I guess if there is maybe one final thing you want to share before we end the show.
Let's make sure we really appreciate and love positive feedback, so write in. And we're going to have a live show in a few weeks' time, so we'll give you advance notice so that
you should have given me a notice first.
We didn't want to do that because we know that you may not come.
In a few weeks. And I say from the point of view of live, what we want to do is have some a talkback show. So we'll invite our listeners to call in and give us some of their thoughts.
We'll tell them beforehand.
And we'll give you a few weeks' notice. But stay tuned, and we'll look forward to speaking to you soon.
So until we meet next Saturday, 9:30 in the morning, this is Nasser, Robert and Yousef wishing you the best of time, and salam.